At 6 in the evening, the air in the old district felt stifling, like a pot of overcooked porridge. No sooner had I stepped out of the used bookstore than a shrill alarm ripped through the sky. The old apartment building on the corner, home to dozens of households, was spewing orange-red flames frantically from a third-floor window. Thick black smoke coiled like a twisted python, shooting toward the heavens. The area was in chaos. Screams, shouts, and the brittle crack of breaking glass mixed together. My mind went blank, but my body felt nailed to the spot, unable to move. I recognized that window. It was Isabella's home. In my previous life, it was this exact day, this very fire. I felt like an idiot overcome by hormones, with only one thought in my head. My goddess is inside. I have to save her. I was the first to rush into the burning building. Before the char beam came crashing down, I pushed her out the window. And the result? My left leg was crushed. I was left disabled for life. She, however, was unscathed. Not even a single eyebrow hair burned. After I was discharged, leaning on crutches, I hobbled over to confess to her. She looked at me with those clear, innocent eyes I had adored through my entire youth and said, "Ethan, I'm really grateful to you, but we're not right for each other. I'm about to go out of state for college. We'll have different lives." Later, I heard she married Jacob, the wealthiest boy from her high school. I hobbled on one leg, doing odd jobs, struggling at the bottom of society for 10 years, and finally on a rainy night, while fighting for a food delivery order, both person and bike slid into the river. In the last moment before consciousness faded, the pretty face in my head wasn't Isabella's, but another girl. The one named Sophia, my neighbor, my first crush from middle school. She was always there to quietly hand me a bottle of water after Isabella rejected me. The first to step up and argue with people when I was mocked for my limp. Willing, when I was down and desperate, to lend me half of the little wage she had. If I could do it all over again. Boom! Another violent explosion dragged me out of the abyss of memories. My nostrils were full of acrid smoke, and deep in the bones of my left leg, a sharp, familiar phantom pain shot through. I really came back. People nearby were shouting, "Call the fire department." Has anyone called the fire department? In the panic, people seemed to have all forgotten about it. My hand trembling, I fumbled the old cell phone out of my pocket and pressed those 3 all-too-familiar digits. "Hello, is this the fire department?" This is the residential building at 112 Changle Road. The 3rd floor is on fire. It's spreading fast, and people are trapped. A professional, calm voice came through the phone. I answer mechanically, my eyes fixed on the window being devoured by flames. I could almost see Isabella's panicked face. She must be terrified right now. But so what? I hung up the phone and, without a moment's hesitation, turned and left. Each step felt like treading on the bones of my past life. Heavy, yet accompanied by an unprecedented sense of ease. I walked into the narrow alley across the street. At the mouth of the alley, a girl with a ponytail was anxiously standing on tiptoe, looking toward the direction of the fire. She was clutching 2 comics she'd just borrowed from the rental shop. "It's Sophia." She saw me, her eyes lighting up, and she immediately ran over, grabbing my arm, her voice full of worry. "Ethan, are you okay? I just saw the fire over there." It scared me to death. Isn't that Isabella's house? I looked at her eyes slightly reddened from anxiety, and my heart felt as if a warm hand had gently squeezed it. In my previous life, after I rushed into the fire, she stood outside just like this, almost crying with worry. But back then, my eyes were only for Isabella. I smiled, reached up and ruffled her hair, and said, "I'm fine. I got caught in it right when I came out, but I've already called the fire department." Sophia visibly let out a sigh of relief, but still patted her chest in lingering fright. I looked at her and suddenly said, "Wait here for me." After speaking, I turned and ran to the old man selling candied hawthorns at the mouth of the alley. "Boss, 1 skewer of hawthorn, the one with the most sugar on it." On the same day in my last life, I passed by here too. Sophia said she wanted a candied hawthorn skewer. I was only thinking about how to find a chance to talk to Isabella and impatiently said, maybe next time, then hurried off. After that, I never had another chance to buy her a skewer. I took the glistening, syrup-coated skewer and returned to Sophia, handing it to her. Here for you. Sophia was stunned, staring blankly at the candied hawthorn in her hand, then looked up at me, her eyes full of confusion and a hint of delight. For me? Why all of a sudden? Nothing. I cut her off, my smile growing unusually easy. I just suddenly wanted to buy it for you. In the distance, the fire truck siren came from far away and grew steadily clearer. I knew Isabella would be rescued. The firefighters would save her. Many kind people would help her. Her fate, from the moment I turned away, was no longer connected to me. This time, I will live my life for myself, for those who truly deserve it. Sophia carefully bit into a candied hawthorn. The sweet and sour juices dissolved in her mouth, and her eyes curved into crescents. Ethan, she slurred, so sweet. I looked at her smiling face and nodded. Very sweet. The next day, the corridor of the inpatient ward at the First Municipal Hospital was filled with a strange smell of disinfectant mixed with cheap food. I was called over by a phone call from my homeroom teacher, Mr. Anderson, who said Isabella wanted to see me. I didn't want to come, but Mr. Anderson's tone left no room for refusal. He said this was classmates' friendship, basic social etiquette. I sneered inwardly. Social etiquette? In my last life, I ruined myself, neither human nor ghost, for the sake of social niceties. In this life, I only observe social niceties if it suits my mood. But to avoid unnecessary trouble, I came anyway. Isabella's ward was a double room. She occupied the bed by the window. The fire didn't cause serious injuries. She just inhaled some heavy smoke and was a bit shaken, so she stayed in the hospital for observation for a day. When I arrived, she was leaning against the headboard, wearing a blue and white striped hospital gown. Her complexion was a bit pale and her hair somewhat messy, but that didn't lessen her beauty at all. If anything, it added a fragile, pitiable charm. Her parents and Mr. Anderson were there, fussing over her and checking on her constantly. When she saw me enter, Isabella's eyes immediately lit up. She struggled to sit up, her voice carrying a touch of weakness and perfectly measured grievance. Ethan, you came. Her parents immediately turned their gaze to me as well. The look was complicated, evaluative, puzzled, and with a faint, hard-to-detect reproach. Mr. Anderson was a man in his 40s. He pushed up his glasses and, in a paternal tone, said to me, Ethan, there was such a big fire yesterday, and you were downstairs. Why didn't you think to go up and help? Isabella is your classmate, after all. Before I could speak, Isabella jumped in. Teacher, please don't blame him. Things were so chaotic then. He was probably terrified too. What she said was airtight. It showed her magnanimity while cementing my image as cowardly and afraid of trouble. In my last life, I was addicted to that kind of speaking art of hers that seemed considerate, but actually showcased her own goodness and superiority at every turn. Hearing it now, it just seemed laughable. I looked at her calmly and spoke, my voice low but unusually clear in the quiet hospital room. Why should I go up and lend a hand? One sentence stopped everyone present in their tracks. Mr. Anderson frowned. Child, how can you speak like that? Courageous action for a righteous cause is. Teacher, I interrupted him. I'm not a firefighter. I don't have the professional equipment or knowledge. Charging into a burning building won't save anyone and could cost me my life, creating extra trouble for the professional rescuers. What I can do is call the fire department immediately and wait for help. I believe that's the most rational and the right choice for an ordinary citizen. My tone was very calm, without a ripple, as if I were stating a physics formula. Mr. Anderson was left speechless by my retort. Isabella went even paler. She bit her lip, her eyes slightly reddening, and looking at me, she asked in a trembling voice, But, Ethan, aren't we friends? I thought you would come to save me. Here we go. This was her specialty, moral blackmail. Using the word friend, using her self-righteous, I thought, to lock you in chains. In my last life, it was this shackle that bound me to death. I looked in her eyes and asked, word by word, Isabella, who gave you the confidence to think that in that situation, I would risk even my own life for you? Isabella was completely stunned. She probably never imagined that Ethan, who had always obeyed her, would say something like this. Her mother, a middle-aged woman dressed very stylishly, could no longer hold back. She stepped forward, pointed at me, and said sharply, "How can you be so cold-blooded? Isabella has always treated you so well, and you just let her die like that? If something really happened to our Isabella, could you live with yourself?" And I turned to her, my gaze showing no retreat. First, I know perfectly well how your daughter treated me. Second, you're using the phrase, standing by and doing nothing far too harshly. I called the police, the firefighters rescued her, and she's lying here perfectly fine now. Third, and most importantly, my life is my own, not anyone else's possession. I am not obligated to play a reckless hero just to satisfy your expectations. After saying that, I stopped looking at them and turned to Mr. Anderson, who was still standing there dazed. "Teacher, since Isabella is all right, I'll head back now. I have classes this afternoon." I turned and walked away, without hesitation or delay. Behind me came Isabella's mother's furious shouting and scolding, and Isabella's suppressed sobs. Stepping out of the ward, the sunlight outside stung my eyes until they smarted. I leaned against the corridor wall and took a deep breath. The phantom pain in my left leg began to throb faintly again, like countless steel needles stabbing my bone marrow. I knew this was the after effect of trauma from my previous life, the shadow I had to carry after being reborn. It reminded me how painful and desperate those 10 years of limping had been. It also reminded me how right my choice in the ward just now had been. I will never give anyone the chance to ruin my life again. Absolutely not. The phone in my pocket vibrated, a message from Sophia. "Ethan, did the teacher send you to the hospital? Are you okay?" I looked at the message, and the knot of melancholy in my chest that had welled up from the memories instantly dissolved. I drafted a reply, the corner of my mouth unconsciously tilting up. "I'm fine, just got out. Don't worry." I thought for a moment, then added one more sentence. "By the way, what about that skewer of candied hawthorn yesterday? Did you finish it?" Back at school, the rumors that I had stood by and watched someone die had already spread through the campus like a virus. There were many versions, but the core idea was the same. School beauty Isabella's house caught fire, and I, Ethan, was downstairs yet watched coldly, too frightened to move, and it was ultimately the firefighters who rescued her. I really didn't expect Ethan to be that kind of person. He acts so nice to Isabella usually. It was all an act, huh? This is what they mean by you can know a person's face, but not their heart. A person's true nature only shows in critical moments. Such a coward. If I were Isabella, I'd never speak to him again. I walked down the corridor, able to clearly hear those whispers and feel the disdainful, contemptuous glances. In my past life, I was someone who cared intensely about what others thought, especially what Isabella thought. If something like that happened, I would have tried every possible way to explain, to make amends, and ended up making a mess of myself. But now, I only find them noisy. These comments, to me, are like the cicada's summer song, annoying, but unable to hurt me in the least. My life doesn't need these irrelevant people to judge it. Sophia had clearly heard the rumors too. She spent the whole afternoon sullen and several times seemed about to speak, but stopped. By the time school ended, she couldn't hold it in any longer. She grabbed the hem of my shirt and whispered, "Ethan, what they're saying, it's not true, right?" I stopped walking and looked at her worried face, then smiled. "It's true," I said. Sophia froze, her face full of disbelief. "Ah, I really didn't rush into the fire," I explained calmly. "I called the fire department, then I left." "But why?" Sophia's brow furrowed more tightly. "You're clearly not that kind of person." In her mind, I was probably still the boy who would get himself covered in injuries to save a stray cat. I looked at her and said seriously, "Sophia, because I'm afraid of dying. Because I don't want my parents to bury their child." Because I know the consequences of showing off as a hero could be something neither I nor my family can bear. Do you think I was wrong? Sophia stared at me blankly, and after a long time she shook her head, her gaze becoming extraordinarily determined. You weren't wrong, she said. They don't know anything, just spouting nonsense over there. A warmth spread through me, and I reached up to ruffle her hair again, only to find she wasn't much shorter than me anymore. All right, don't be upset over such a small thing. I withdrew my hand, took a new manga from my backpack, and handed it to her. Come on, let's go home. Days passed in this bland, uneventful way. The rumor stayed hot for a few days, then gradually died down. After all, for a senior in high school, nothing was more important than the mock exam a month away. Isabella was discharged from the hospital and returned to school. She seemed a little thinner, but was still the focus of the crowd. She no longer sought me out, only occasionally passing me in the hallway, her eyes becoming complicated as if looking at a stranger. I was happy to have the peace and quiet. However, trouble still came knocking first. That evening study period, I was bent over a set of math papers when the back door of the classroom was pushed open. Isabella's #1 suitor, the rich kid she eventually married in the previous life, Jacob, stood blocking the doorway with 2 hangers-on. Ethan, come out here. Jacob's voice was low but full of provocation. The whole class's gazes all snapped to me at once. I didn't even look up and kept working on the last analytic geometry problem, saying calmly, if you've got something to say, say it. I'm Busse. Jacob probably didn't expect that attitude. His face darkened, he walked straight over and slapped my desk. You're pretty cocky, aren't you? He looked down at me. I heard you were pretty bold the other day. Even made Isabella cry. I finally finished the last step, put down my pen, looked up, and watched him calmly. And so, Jacob sneered. I'm here today to teach you what it means to cherish a delicate flower, what it means to be a hero saving a beauty. Cowards like you don't deserve to be in the same class as Isabella. His 2 cronies closed in as well, cracking their knuckles, faces full of ill intent. I ignored him and instead turned to look toward the classroom door. Isabella just stood there, quietly watching. She didn't stop it, didn't speak, and there was even a hint of expectation in her eyes. What was she expecting? Was she expecting Jacob to stick up for her, to give me a harsh lesson to satisfy her vanity that I had offended? How pathetic. I withdrew my gaze and looked at Jacob again, then suddenly laughed. Jacob, do you know what you look like right now? Jacob was taken aback. Like what? Like a dog eager to show off in front of its master. The moment I finished speaking, Jacob's face instantly flushed the color of raw liver. You fucking want to die. He roared and swung a punch at my face. I didn't dodge. Just as his fist was about to hit me, my left leg, the left leg that had been broken in my previous life, suddenly erupted in a soul-wrenching, tearing pain. It wasn't an illusion. It was real, bone-deep pain. Cold sweat instantly broke out on my forehead, and my body convulsed violently from the agony. Bang! Jacob's fist landed squarely on my face. I fell off the chair, crashing into the table and chairs behind me, making a tremendous noise. My mouth was full of the taste of blood, and my ears were ringing. But none of that compared to the stabbing pain in my left leg. I clutched my left leg, curled up on the ground, veins standing out on my forehead as my body trembled uncontrollably. Damn PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. It always, at the most unexpected moments, in the cruelest way, reminds me of the pain from my previous life. The classroom fell into a dead silence. Everyone was stunned by this sudden turn of events. Jacob was stunned too. He probably didn't expect me to be so easily defeated. Is that all you've got? He came to his senses and contemptuously kicked my arm. Trash. After saying that, he turned around triumphantly, like a victorious general, and walked up to Isabella. As for Isabella, from beginning to end, she only looked on coldly. Watching me being beaten, watching me fall to the ground, there wasn't a ripple in her expression, not even the cheapest hint of concern. At that moment, a small, thin figure came charging over like a man possessed, holding a thick Oxford dictionary. Jacob, You bastard. It was Sophia. She rushed up to Jacob and, using all her strength, slammed the dictionary down hard onto his head. With a dull thud, the heavy Oxford dictionary landed squarely on the back of Jacob's skull. Jacob gave a muffled grunt, stumbled forward 2 steps, almost fell. He clutched the back of his head, turned around in disbelief, eyes blazing with anger as he looked at the girl who was trembling all over with fury. Sophia? Are you fucking crazy? You are not allowed to bully Ethan. Sophia's eyes were red. She glared at Jacob, then glanced at Isabella in the doorway. Her voice was quiet but filled with force. Both of you get the hell out. This was the first time I'd seen Sophia so furious. She is usually as meek as a rabbit, but at this moment she looks like a lioness enraged at anyone threatening her cub. Jacob's follower wanted to push her forward, but was cowed by the death-defying aura she gave off. Jacob rubbed the back of his head. It felt sticky. He knew he was bleeding. Frustrated and furious, he raised his hand to strike Sophia. Stop! I clenched my teeth against the searing pain in my left leg, braced myself on the table, and swayed as I stood up. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth and looked at Jacob coldly. My opponent is me. If you dare touch her, I promise you'll regret it. My voice was a little hoarse, but the chill in my eyes made Jacob freeze in his tracks. Maybe my stare was too frightening, or maybe making a scene would be bad for him. In the end, he let go, glared at me viciously. Ethan, just you wait. With that, he grabbed Isabella, who was still reeling from shock, and, with his lackeys, slunk away. The classroom fell silent again, leaving only the classmates' cautious breaths. Sophia hurried over to steady me, nearly in tears. Ethan, are you okay? Do you need to go to the infirmary? The sharp pain in my leg was slowly ebbing, but my body still went weak in waves. I shook my head and said to her, I'm fine, just help me sit up. Sophia helped me back into my seat, took a tissue from her pocket, and carefully wiped the wound at the corner of my mouth. I looked at her face so close to mine, written all over with concern, and felt a swirl of emotions. In my last life, I lost a leg because of Isabella. In this life, Sophia, for me, dared to smash a dictionary over a boy bigger and stronger than she is. What should have fought desperately to protect couldn't be clearer. After evening study, Sophia and I walked home together. The streetlights stretched our shadows long. Ethan, Sophia said, head down, kicking a pebble by the road. Why didn't you fight back today? You could have dodged it. I was silent for a while, not knowing how to explain that damned phantom pain to her. My leg went numb at the time. I didn't react. I muttered, coming up with an excuse. Sophia said, oh, and didn't press further, but she obviously didn't believe me. Don't be so impulsive from now on. I warned her instead. People like Jacob are not someone you can mess with. But he bullied you. Sophia looked up, saying stubbornly, I just couldn't stand it. I watched her defiant expression and couldn't help laughing. All right, I know you're fierce, happy now, but next time protect me. Remember to bring a lighter book. The Oxford Dictionary is too heavy. If it breaks something, you'll have to buy a new one. Sophia laughed at my teasing, and the worry on her face melted away. Back home, I sat at my desk, but couldn't focus on a single word. Jacob's punch, Sophia's dictionary, and Isabella's cold face kept intertwining in my mind. I realized that simply staying away from Isabella was far from enough. As long as she and I were in the same environment, troubles like Jacob would keep coming. I had to become strong. Powerful enough that no one dared to provoke me anymore. Powerful enough to keep Sophia safely behind me. Money and power are still too far away from who I am now. Right now, the only thing I can grasp is knowledge. It's grades, it's an acceptance letter from a prestigious school. It's that upcoming competition that could change my life. I opened my computer and logged into a website I was incredibly familiar with in my previous life, the official site of the National Youth Informatics Olympiad. In my last life, I won the state first prize in this competition when I was a sophomore in high school. If not for the fire in my senior year, I very likely would have placed in the national finals and earned guaranteed admission to a top university. Now I'm back, carrying the soul of a 30-year-old seasoned programmer and a clear understanding of the technology developments for the next decade. I'm here to compete in this high school contest. This was no longer a competition. It was a one-sided slaughter. I looked at the 4 big characters on the screen, registration channel, and my gaze grew more determined than ever. The next day, I handed the printed registration form to Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson glanced at me, then at the registration form, his brow furrowing. Ethan, this competition is very challenging. Only 1 or 2 students from our school even try each year. Are you sure you want to sign up? His implication was clear. He thought I couldn't do it. I'm sure, I said calmly. All right, Mr. Anderson nodded and set my registration form aside. I know he didn't take this seriously. It's okay. Soon he will find out that I'm not only going, but I'm also taking back everything that should have belonged to me. During the afternoon break, Isabella unusually took the initiative to find me. She stood by my desk, looking down, and said in a tone I knew well, condescending, as if doing me a favor. Ethan, I heard about what happened last night. Jacob was a bit impulsive. I've already told him. I can't even be bothered to lift an eyelid. She seemed a little unaccustomed to my indifference. She paused, then added, but you, a man, getting beaten like that and not fighting back, it is kind of... She didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was obvious. Finished. I flipped a page of my book. If you're done, move aside. You're blocking my light. Isabella's face went pale instantly. It was probably the first time someone had treated her like that. She took a deep breath, as if about to say something, but in the end she held back. She took a small first aid kit from behind her and set it on my desk. This is the medicine I bought for you. Remember to apply it. When she finished speaking, she acted as if a task were completed and turned to leave, her back straight, still carrying that proud, white SWN air. I looked at the first aid kit on the desk, too lazy to even touch it. I picked it up and tossed it straight into the nearby trash can. The bandage Sophia bought is still stuck to my face. Your cheap, belated concern is worthless to me. Life returned to the normal routine of studying and preparing for competitions. I split all my time in 2, half to handle school classes and exams, and the other half entirely devoted to preparing for competitions. Sophia became my strongest support. She would help me organize class notes, carry cafeteria food to the classroom, sit quietly beside me reading, and hand me a cup of hot water when I grew tired typing code. Our relationship, through that tacit companionship, quietly began to change. Isabella and Jacob also seemed to have quieted down for the time being, probably because of what happened last time. Jacob was likely frightened by that dictionary Sophia threw, and maybe my icy look that day made him wary. Isabella completely entered Cold War mode and practically treated me as invisible at school. Exactly what I wanted. A month later, the results of the first mock exam were released. I achieved a total score of 712, taking first place in the entire grade. This result detonated like a blockbuster bomb, blowing up the whole senior year. You must understand, although my previous grades were also considered excellent, they usually hovered around 20th in the grade, far from first place. And the person who had occupied the top spot for years was none other than Isabella. This time, she scored 698, trailing me by more than 10 points. The day the report card was posted, I could feel countless complicated gazes fall on me. Surprise, suspicion, even envy. Mr. Anderson held my report card, studied it for a long time, then called me into his office and said earnestly, "Ethan, you've made great progress this time. The teachers are very pleased. But studying is like building a house. You have to take it step by step and can't cut corners." I understood what he meant. He suspected I had cheated. I didn't explain. I only said calmly, "Teacher, at the second mock exam a month from now, I'll prove it to you. Strength is the most effective weapon to shatter all doubts." Compared to the teacher's suspicion, Isabella's reaction was much more direct. That afternoon, she cornered me at the stair landing of the teaching building. She stared at me hard, her eyes full of unwillingness and anger, with none of her former composure and grace. "You cheated, didn't you?" she demanded. I looked at her and found it a little funny. "Isabella, Do you really think that everyone who's better than you in this world succeeded by improper means? Then what? She sneered. Because of you? In 1 month, your total score went up by 40 points, and you took first in the grade? Don't make me laugh. I don't need to prove anything to you. I was too lazy to argue and turned to leave. Ethan, she called after me, her voice sharp. Don't get cocky. It was just a mock exam. It proves nothing. In the college entrance exam, I'll make you see that the gap between us is one you'll never close. I stopped, glanced back at her, and said calmly, I'm looking forward to it. Having said that, I walked away without looking back. I really am looking forward to it. I was looking forward to utterly crushing her ridiculous pride in the Gaokao exam hall. Time flew, and before I knew it, the day of the state-level informatics competition had arrived. The competition was being held at a university in the state capital, so we needed to go a day early. In my previous life, I gave up this opportunity because of a leg injury. In this life, I can finally make up for that regret. The night before we left, Sophia came to help me pack. While folding clothes, she softly reminded me, don't be nervous during the competition, just perform as usual. Also, make sure to eat on time over there and go to bed early at night. Her fussing manner made her seem like a worried little housekeeper. I sat beside her, quietly watching her, my heart soft all over. Sophia. I suddenly spoke. She looked up. Wait for me to come back. I said. Sophia's face flushed in an instant. She lowered her head and made an almost inaudible sound. Early the next morning, I boarded the bus to the prefectural capital. Accompanying me were 2 other students from a school who were competing and a computer teacher leading the team. The teacher's attitude toward me had made a complete 180-degree turn after the mock exam results came out. He became unusually warm and highly appreciative. This is reality. When you are weak, the whole world is full of malice toward you. When you are strong, the whole world treats you kindly. The entire competition was effortless for me. The algorithm problems that other contestants racked their brains over were as simple to me as 1 + 1 is equal to 2. I finished all the questions in less than half the allotted time and ensured a 100% score. When I handed in my paper early and walked out of the exam hall, I even had the leisure to stroll around the university campus. This was the institution I had yearned for in my previous life, but ultimately lost. In this life, not only would I enter openly, I would do so with the bearing of a victor. 1 week later, the competition results were announced. I won the state first prize without any suspense, and I was the only person in the entire state to score full marks. This result not only directly earned me a ticket to the national finals, but more importantly, it came with a huge bonus. Guaranteed admission to one of the country's top 2 universities. When the news reached the school, it completely set the whole campus abuzz. If last time some people still suspected I cheated on the mock exam, then this time, being the perfect score top scorer in the state competition was enough to shut everyone up. Mr. Anderson rubbed his hands excitedly in his office, patting my shoulder again and continuously saying, "Good kid, you really make the teacher proud." The principal received me personally and promised the school would give me the highest reward. Those who once pointed fingers at me now look at me with nothing but awe and admiration. Walking through the campus, I felt for the first time what it was like to be the center of everyone's attention. I knew that from this moment on, my life had completely steered onto an entirely different course. And Isabella, that once lofty white swan, had long been left far behind by me. The grades she took pride in, the superiority she depended on to survive, were shattered to pieces by my absolute strength. The weekend after the competition results came out, Jacob came to find me again. But this time, he wasn't looking for trouble. He came to apologize. He waited for me under the classroom building carrying a pile of expensive gifts, and when he saw me approach, he immediately put on a flattering smile. Ethan, he bobbed and scraped as he approached. It was my mistake for not recognizing greatness before. You're magnanimous. Don't hold it against a small-time person like me. I looked at his face, which was wildly different front to back, and felt a wave of nausea. This was the survival rule for people like him. Bully the weak, fear the strong, and cling to power. Need something? I asked coldly. It's nothing, it's nothing. He hurriedly waved his hand. I just wanted to invite brother Ethan to a meal. Make a friend. I have nothing to say to you. I stepped around him and walked straight ahead. Brother Ethan, please. He chased after me, shoving the gift in his hand into my arms. It's just a small token. You must accept it. From now on at school, if there's anything, just tell me. I'm Jacob. I promise I'll handle it properly for you. I stopped, looked at him, then at the thing in his hand, and suddenly smiled. I took the gifts, and under his surprised gaze, turned and walked over to Isabella, who wasn't far away. Isabella was standing with a few female classmates. When she saw me approaching, their conversation died off abruptly. Isabella's expression looked a little awkward, her eyes shifting, avoiding meeting my gaze. I shoved everything in my hands into her arms in one go. Here, the one you wanted, he sent it to you. Isabella stood frozen in place, clutching the pile of things. Jacob was stunned too, staring at me blankly, not understanding what I was doing. I looked at Isabella and said, word by word, Isabella, look closely. This is the man you picked. A man who a few days ago wanted to beat me to death, and today can grovel like a dog to curry favor with me. What do you think he can give you? After I finished speaking, I ignored her ashen face and Jacob's embarrassed expression and turned to leave. Sophia was waiting for me not far away. When she saw me approach, she blinked and asked curiously, what did you say to them? Isabella went white. Nothing, I replied with an easy smile. Just helped her face reality. Some people's pride is built on sand. A single wave can shatter it. And I will use my life to build an impregnable castle. The results of the second mock exam came out quickly. I was still first in the grade, and the gap between me and the second place had grown even larger. Isabella fell to fifth in the grade. I knew her mentality had already collapsed. Someone who is used to standing at the top cannot accept being surpassed, or even being left far behind. She began to grow silent, even a little neurotic. As for me, I was too lazy to pay attention to anything about her anymore. My gaze had long since turned to farther places. The national finals notice came down. The venue is in Jing City. That means I'll have the chance to get a preview of the city where I'll be living for the next 4 years, maybe even longer. This time, I didn't leave Sophia alone at home. I used the prize money from the competition to buy her a plane ticket to Jing City as well. Come with me, I said to her. Think of it as going early to take a look at our future university. Sophia's eyes lit up instantly, as if stars were glittering inside them. Us, she confirmed cautiously. Yes, us. I nodded firmly. As long as you do well on the Gaokao and get into a university in Jing City, there will be no problem at all. Sophia nodded firmly, her eyes a little moist. I knew that for her this was more than a trip. It was a promise, a future we would pursue together. We spent a pleasant 3 days in early summer in Jing City. I took her to the famous sites and spent an evening at a lakeside bar listening to folk songs. The day before the competition, we went together to the university where I was about to be admitted. Walking through the tree-lined campus, watching the upperclassmen passing by, full of youthful energy, Sophia's eyes were filled with longing. Ethan, she looked up at me. This place is wonderful. I'll work hard and get in here to come find you. I stopped walking and took her hand. Her hand was small and soft. I looked in her eyes and said earnestly, Sophia, don't come to find me. Come with me. Here, let's start our new life together. Sophia's cheeks flushed, but she didn't pull her hand back. She gripped mine tightly in return. In that moment, I knew some things no longer needed words to be expressed. The next day at the national finals, I once again won the gold medal by an overwhelming margin. When I accepted the award, standing on the country's top stage and looking at the flashing lights below, I felt unusually calm. This was only the beginning. A brand new beginning that belonged to Ethan Johnson. After returning from the capital, I officially received a recommendation to be admitted to a top 2 university. That meant the upcoming college entrance exam was, for me, merely a formality. This news sent my reputation at school to its peak. I became the pride every teacher talked about, the other people's child every parent mentioned, and the object of envy and admiration among all my classmates. And all of this had happened in less than 3 months since that fire. In 3 months, my life had been turned upside down. Isabella fell completely silent. She no longer tried to cause me trouble, nor did she appear in my sight anymore. I heard she had put all her energy into studying, hoping to prove herself in the final college entrance exam. I neither agreed nor disagreed. A person's mindset determines her ceiling. What great achievements can someone with a mind already out of balance accomplish, no matter how hard she tries? In the last month before the exam, the class organized a farewell meal. The venue was a medium-sized restaurant. Almost the entire class attended. Sophia and I sat together, chatting with the classmates around us, and the atmosphere was very pleasant. Halfway through the meal, Isabella carried a drink and came over to our table. She was wearing light makeup today and a white dress, looking restored to her former goddess-like grace. She raised the cup in front of me, a complex smile on her face. "Ethan, I drink to you with this. I was wrong before. Apologize to you." Everyone's gazes converged. I looked at her and did not take the drink. "No need for apologies," I said coolly. "There's nothing between us anymore." Isabella's smile froze on her face. Jacob beside her couldn't stand it and stepped forward, saying, "Ethan, don't be shameless. Isabella already apologized to you voluntarily. What more do you want?" I glanced at him, too lazy to bother with him. I said to Isabella, "If you really want to apologize, you should understand that the best way is to stop bothering me. Finish this drink, and we'll act like we never knew each other." After speaking, I picked up my cup, lightly clinked it against hers, and then drained it in one go. Isabella looked at me, a flicker of pain and unwillingness passing through her eyes. But in the end, she said nothing and tipped her head back to finish her drink. This little incident didn't affect my mood. After the meal, Sophia and I left early and didn't take part in the subsequent KTV activities. We walked slowly along the riverbank. The summer night's breeze carried a hint of moisture. It felt pleasant on the face. "Ethan," Sophia suddenly spoke, "have you never truly liked Isabella?" I was taken aback for a moment. I hadn't expected her to ask that question. I thought for a long time before I slowly spoke. Before, I thought I loved her. I loved that she was beautiful, that she did well in school, that she had that halo of being the center of attention. I thought that if I could win her, I would have the whole world. But later I realized that what I loved was just a perfect shadow I had imagined myself. I projected all my beautiful fantasies onto her, moved myself, and also bound myself. I never truly tried to understand what she was really like. I turned to look at Sophia. In the moonlight, her eyes were bright and sparkling. "But you're different, Sophia," I said. "I don't need to fantasize, because the real you is more than enough. So much so that being with you feels like the greatest luck of my life." Sophia's steps halted, and she looked at me, a mist of tears slowly gathering in her eyes. I lifted my hand, gently wiped away the tears at the corner of her eye, leaned down, and kissed her lips. Her lips were as soft as I had imagined, carrying a faint sweet taste, just like that string of candy hawthorns. It belonged to me, lost and recovered, the sweetest thing on earth. The college entrance exam arrived on schedule. To me, it was just an easy trip, but to Sophia, Isabella, and the tens of thousands of examinees, it was the single plank bridge that decided their fate. I walked into the exam hall with a calm mind. In my previous life, because of a leg injury, I performed poorly and in the end only got into an ordinary state university. This time, I will meet this long overdue battle in my peak condition. Chinese math, English science composite. In every exam, my answers flowed like running clouds in water. Those difficult problems that once gave me headaches have now become clear and obvious to me. A reborn soul combined with a genius brain. This combination is almost invincible. After finishing the last paper and walking out of the exam hall, I saw Sophia waiting outside. She looked a little nervous, her face somewhat pale. I walked over and took her hand. Her palm was slick with cold sweat. "How did the exam go?" I asked. She forced a smile. "It was okay, I guess. I was just a bit nervous." "It's okay, it's all over." I smoothed her bangs that had been mussed by the wind. "You'll be fine. Trust me, and trust yourself." Sophia nodded. Her emotions seemed to have steadied a bit. In the crowd, I also saw Isabella and Jacob. Isabella looked even worse than Sophia, her expression full of anxiety and unease. Jacob comforted her from the side, but she seemed completely unable to listen. I knew that this time she had failed the exam. A person's mindset can really determine everything. She wanted to win so badly, to prove herself so much that the obsession instead crushed her. The summer after the college entrance exam was the most relaxed and pleasant vacation I'd had in over 10 years. Sophia and I took summer jobs together, working as waitresses at a fast food restaurant. Although it was tiring, every day was filled with laughter and joy. We also planned our futures together, talked about university life, and dreamed about trips after graduation. That feeling of hope and anticipation for the future was something I had never experienced in my previous life. We were both very nervous on the day the results came out. I was the first to enter the score-checking system and typed in Sophia's exam admission number, 6-8-9. Total score, 689. A score high enough to let her confidently enter any top university in the capital city. The moment Sophia saw the score, she was so excited she jumped up and hugged me, crying tears of joy. I held her, my heart also full of happiness and satisfaction. Being able to personally change the fate of someone I care about. That sense of accomplishment is more powerful than any success I could achieve myself. Checking the grades, we suddenly remembered we hadn't looked at mine yet. Actually, it didn't matter whether we checked or not, since I'd already been recommended for admission. But out of curiosity, we still looked it up. 7-3-5. Total score, 735. Top scorer in the province for the science stream. Even I was somewhat surprised by this result. I had originally thought that scoring around 720 points would be enough. It seems a good mindset really can create miracles. Sophia looked at my score, so excited she couldn't speak, just kept grinning foolishly. That night, both our families went out to eat together. Sophia's parents were absolutely delighted with me as their future son-in-law, repeatedly serving me food. My parents also wore faces full of pride and satisfaction. At the dinner table, I received a call from Mr. Anderson. He was so excited on the other end that he could barely speak, saying I was the school's first statewide top scorer since its founding, that they would hold a celebration for me and give me a bonus. Shortly after, calls from major media outlets arrived one after another, all wanting to interview me, the newly minted top scorer. I politely declined each one. Fame and fortune, to me, were already fleeting clouds. I just want, quietly and peacefully, to share this joy with the person I love. While we were eating, I accidentally overheard the people at the next table talking. "Did you hear? That school belle at Oak Ridge High, Isabella, messed up the college entrance exam this time. She only scored 605. That low. Isn't she always first in grade? With that score, she probably can't even get into a decent state university, right? Who says otherwise?" I heard her parents are about to go crazy. They were counting on her marrying into a good family to bring honor to the clan. I listened to this gossip with not a ripple in my heart, not even a hint of schadenfreude. Her life, her choices, her consequences. None of it had anything to do with me anymore. The title of top scholar brought me a brief spell of excitement and noise. But soon everything returned to calm. Sophia and I filled out our university choices together. She picked another top university in Jing City to study her favorite subject, architectural design. The two schools were very close, only 3 subway stops apart. We were full of anticipation for the upcoming university life. That summer, unlike my classmates who traveled or relaxed, I did not take a vacation. Using the money I had gotten from selling competition code, plus the prize money from my school, I rented a small stall in the electronics market and opened a computer assembly and repair shop. In my previous life, I worked for several years in computer repair and knew this field inside and out. More importantly, I had a clear understanding of hardware development over the next 10 years. I knew which CPU would become a legendary model, which graphics card would be the best value, which RAM would drop in price, and which SSD would rise in price. These informational advantages were my greatest wealth. My little shop is tucked away in an inconspicuous corner, but I never worry about having no customers. I offered a few builds at highly competitive prices specifically aimed at college students and gamers. To people at the time, these configurations might have seemed somewhat bizarre, even counter-mainstream. But to me, this was the most scientific and reasonable combination for the coming years. At first, business was very quiet. But soon, the first bold customer appeared. A boy about to go to college, holding the parts list I gave him, half skeptical, had me build a computer for him. A few days later, he returned to my shop with a big group of classmates. "Boss, your setup is badass. It runs games smoother than my classmates, and has cost $1,000 more." Reputation was built up bit by bit like that. My little shop gradually became a legend in the computer market. Many people came because of its fame. Some even traveled from other cities specifically to have me build their rigs. After one summer, I not only recovered my costs, I also netted over $100,000. At that time, for a high school graduate, it was undoubtedly a fortune. Sophia became the only employee in my shop. She couldn't assemble computers, so she helped with odds and ends, handled the accounts, and greeted customers. Watching her in an apron, diligently wiping the computer case, I often thought this might be the happiest scene I could imagine. Just as I was busy and thrilled, Isabella came to see me once. She came alone, without makeup, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, looking haggard. She stood at the entrance of my little shop filled with cases and components, completely out of place with the surroundings. "Ethan," she began, her voice a little hoarse, I'm repeating the year. I made an "oh" sound, kept my head down, pretending to fiddle with the device in my hands, and said nothing more. Her pride wouldn't allow her to get into such a poor school. Repeating the year was her only option. She seemed to want to say something, but didn't know where to start. After a long time, she finally mustered the courage and asked, Are you still blaming me?" I stopped what I was doing, looked up, and stared at her. "Isabella," I said calmly, "I don't blame you. Because to me, you are no longer important. So unimportant that I have no reason to waste my feelings blaming you." Her face went instantly ashen. Her body wavered, as if she could collapse at any moment. I know that my words hurt more than any vicious curse. Ignoring someone is the highest form of contempt. In the end, she still said nothing and walked away in a daze. Watching her retreating figure, I felt not a shred of satisfaction. I just think that a person who lives in their own little world is truly pitiable. She will never understand that the world does not revolve around her alone, nor does everyone have to follow her script and play the roles of adoring or pursuing her. My life has its own script, and the female lead of this script, from beginning to end, was only one person. I turned my head and looked at Sophia, who was diligently doing the calculations, and smiled. "Sophia, what do you want to eat tonight? It's on me." In September, we boarded the train bound for Jing City. This was the first time Sophia and I had gone away together. On the train, we nestled against each other, watching the scenery rushing past the window, filled with boundless longing for the future. When we arrived in Jing City and settled in, our university life officially began. I was studying computer science, the top program in the country. Sophia majored in architecture, which was also the flagship program at their school. We were all very busy, but we always managed to make time to meet. We studied together, ate together in the cafeteria, and walked together by the lake. College life was much freer and far more exciting than high school. I soaked up knowledge like a sponge, ravenously absorbing everything. Those cutting-edge theories and advanced technologies opened my eyes wide. I not only ranked at the top of my major courses, but also used my spare time to start trying to write some of my own small programs. In my previous life, although I also worked in the IT industry, I was only an entry-level coder, repeating Control+C and Control+V every day. This life, I will stand at the crest of the tech wave. I used the money I earned over summer vacation to rent a small office near campus and register my own software company. The company is only 2 people, me and Sophia. I handle technical development. She's in charge of cheering me on and, incidentally, designing the company logo. The first project I did was a social app based on a campus network. At the time, the idea didn't seem particularly novel. There were already several similar apps on the market, but I knew they all had various flaws. And what I had to make was a perfect product that could precisely address the social pain points of university students. Using my understanding of future social app trends, I included many forward-looking features in my product. For example, an interest-based matching algorithm, an anonymous tree hole feature, and a campus event posting and team-up platform. The product development process was hard and very lonely. I spent almost all of my spare time holed up in the office, but Sophia stayed with me the whole time. She would bring me meals, help me look up information, and when my late nights became too much, make me a cup of hot coffee. Sometimes I would be coding until late at night, and when I looked over, I could see her asleep on the small table beside me. Under the lights, her peaceful sleeping face was the cure for all my exhaustion. I knew I wasn't fighting alone. 3 months later, our product, Xiaoyan, officially launched. At first, we had no marketing channels and could only rely on the most primitive methods, posting on the school's BBS and in various club groups. The effect was negligible. Just when I was at my wit's end, an unexpected person helped me. It was Jacob. He had also gotten into the capital city and was studying finance at another university. He didn't know where he heard that I was starting a business, but he took the initiative to seek me out. "Ethan," he said, still in that obsequious tone, "I heard you're into software. My dad knows a few people in investment. Wanting to make an introduction?" I looked at him and suddenly had an idea. "No need for investment," I said, "but I do need you to do me a favor." I told him my idea. When he finished listening, his eyes lit up and he slapped his thigh. "Brother Ethan, that's a brilliant move. Don't worry, I'll take care of it." A few days later, a grand campus goddess selection event was simultaneously held across more than a dozen universities in Jing City. The event was sponsored by the Jacob family's company, and the only voting channel was to download and register for my Xiaoyan app. This simple and blunt, yet extremely effective promotional method instantly set the whole university town ablaze. Downloads of Xiaoyan surpassed 100,000 in just 1 week. The number of users grew exponentially. The advanced features I designed quickly won users over. Xiaoyan became a hit, a massive hit. I stood at the office window, watching the bustling crowd below, feeling deeply moved. In my last life, it took me 10 years to barely get a foothold in this city. This life, in less than a year, I already had the capital to start my own business. Rebirth gave me more than just the ability to foresee the future. More importantly, it gave me the courage and determination to seize opportunities and take control of my own fate. My phone rang. It was Sophia. "Ethan, want to have dinner tonight? Let's celebrate our school match being a success." I smiled and said, "Sure, but let's not celebrate the school match. Let's celebrate us. Celebrating us. Finally, in this vast city, we have our first little beginning that belongs to the two of us." For years passed in the blink of an eye. College days flew by in a hurry. Over these 4 years, my relationship with Sophia grew ever deeper. Our Xiaoyan app, which started as a small campus product, developed into the national leader in college student social networking. We secured several rounds of funding. The company grew larger and larger, and the office moved from that small room beside the school to an office building in the city center. I became Mr. Ethan in other people's mouths, becoming a model of university student entrepreneurship. Sophia also became a somewhat well-known designer, not only handling all the visual design for our company, but also taking on some freelance jobs outside. Her work even won awards. We all became the people we wanted to be. On graduation day, I went on stage to speak as a representative of outstanding graduates. I looked at the dense crowd below the stage, saw my parents, saw Sophia, saw those faces that were once familiar but now somewhat strange. In my heart, there wasn't much excitement, only a calm sense of inevitability. Everything was progressing steadily along the path I had anticipated. After the ceremony, I received an unexpected phone call. It was Jacob calling. His voice on the other end sounded anxious, even with a hint of crying. "Brother Ethan, save me." I frowned. "What's happened?" Isabella is going to jump off a building." I was stunned. Isabella? That name, I haven't heard it in a very long time. Ever since 4 years ago, when she left my computer shop in a daze, I haven't heard a single word about her. I heard she repeated a year of study, still didn't get good results, and eventually went to a state university in the South. During those 4 years of college, we had no contact at all. I thought our lives would never intersect again. "Where is she?" I asked. Jacob gave an address, an upscale hotel in the city center. I hung up, hesitated for a moment. Sophia noticed my oddness and asked, "What's wrong?" "Isabella, she's going to jump." Sophia's expression changed as well. Although she didn't like Isabella, it was still a life after all. "Then, let's hurry over and take a look," she said. I nodded, took her hand, and we hailed a cab for that hotel. Outside the hotel, a crowd had already gathered. Police cars and fire engines were there, and a large air cushion had been laid out below. I looked up to the rooftop more than 30 stories high, where a white figure was standing on the edge, swaying precariously. It was Isabella. When Sophia and I arrived on the rooftop, Jacob was there with several police officers, earnestly trying to reason with her. "Isabella, come down now. Whatever is, we can talk about it. Don't do anything foolish." When Isabella saw me, her emotions suddenly flared. "Ethan, you're here," she shouted at me through her tears. "Are you here to laugh at me?" She was wearing a white dress today, the same kind she liked to wear in my memory. But now she was haggard, her eyes full of despair and madness, not a trace left of who she once was. I looked at her with a calm heart. "I'm not here to gloat," I said. "I'm here to tell you, don't use your life to punish others, and don't try to take others hostage. It's not worth it. Not worth it." She laughed hoarsely. "Of course you think it's not worth it. You're Mr. Ethan now. You're a winner in life. You have everything. And me? I have nothing left." From Jacob's broken, intermittent sobbing, I roughly understood what had happened over these past few years. After graduating from university, Isabella didn't look for a job. She followed Jacob, intent on marrying into a wealthy family. But Jacob's parents simply looked down on her. Jacob was also a hopeless good-for-nothing, relying on his family's wealth. He spent his days drinking and carousing, shirking responsibility. Just a few days ago, Jacob's family's company declared bankruptcy due to poor management and failed investments. Jacob went from a rich heir to a second-generation debtor. Isabella's dream of marrying into wealth was completely shattered. She blamed all her failures on me. She believed that if it weren't for me, her life wouldn't have turned out like this. "If you had saved me back then, if you hadn't treated me that way, if we had been together back then," she cried hysterically, "none of this would be how it is now. It's all because of you. Ethan, you ruined me." I listened quietly to her accusations, without refuting them. She only stopped when she was too tired to cry, and then I finally spoke slowly. "Isabella, you're wrong. You're wrong." My calm voice sounded unusually clear on the noisy rooftop. Isabella stopped crying, her eyes red, glaring at me fiercely. "Where did I go wrong?" "Your mistake is that, even today, you still blame the failures in your own life on other people." I looked at her. There was no anger in my eyes, only a trace of pity. 4 years ago, when a fire broke out, you thought I should risk my life to save you. That was your selfishness. You failed the college entrance exam, and you think I affected your mindset. That's your excuse. Now you pin all your hopes on one man, and when that hope is shattered, you think I ruined your life. I stepped forward and stared into her eyes full of madness. "Isabella, Have you ever asked yourself what you really want? Besides leaning on others and living for other people's opinions, is there anything in your life that belongs to you? Your pride, your dreams, your worth. Are they really just to marry into a wealthy family and become a comfortable socialite? Each word of mine was like a hammer, striking hard against her heart. Her complexion grew paler and paler, and her body began to tremble uncontrollably. You have never truly lived for yourself. You live for your parents' expectations, for your teacher's praise, for your classmates' envy. You relish being the center of attention and believe you deserve it. So when all of that disappears, you feel as if your world has collapsed. But, Isabella, all of that was always fake. It was a bubble. True strength doesn't come from external adoration. It comes from inner resolve. It's knowing who you are, knowing where you're going, and having the courage to give everything to get there. The wind on the rooftop was strong, making the edges of my clothes flutter. I turned my head and glanced at Sophia, who was holding my hand tightly. Like her, I said. She's not as pretty as you, not from as good a family, and not as charming as you. But she knows what she likes. For her dream, she can quietly draw through the night. For me, she can summon the courage to fight someone. She lives every step of her life steadily. So today she can stand here and share all my successes and joys with me. And you. I turn my gaze back to Isabella. Besides this appearance and that pitiful pride that's long been shattered by reality, what do you have left? Isabella completely fell apart. She slumped to the ground and sobbed, crying with a heart-wrenching, ripping sound. All her pretenses, all her pride, at this moment were stripped away by me cleanly, revealing the fragile, hollow, and utterly unresistant core inside. The police took the opportunity to rush forward and yanked her back from the edge of the rooftop. The farce was finally over. Sophia and I turned and left, not looking back. When I went downstairs, Jacob chased after me, sniffling and tearful as he thanked me. Ethan, thank you so much for today. If it weren't for you, Isabella, I cut him off. No need to thank me. I only said a few honest words. I looked at this man who had once been utterly arrogant, now reduced to something like a beaten dog, and suddenly felt a pang of boredom. This was the fate Isabella chose in her previous life. A bubble, a gentle poke, and it would burst. Stepping out of the hotel, the sunlight outside was a bit dazzling. I squinted, watching the bustling street, feeling a calmness in my heart like never before. I finally understood that being reborn wasn't so I could come back and take revenge on anyone. It was so I could have a chance to re-examine my life and make different choices. It was so I could understand what truly deserves my cherishing and protection. Isabella's appearance was like a mirror on the road of my life. She reflected my past foolishness and stubbornness. She also made me see clearly the path I truly want to take. Now, that mirror is broken, and I, at last, could put down all my burdens and move forward unencumbered. The scandal of Isabella jumping from the building soon died down. I heard she was taken back to her hometown by her family to receive psychological treatment. Jacob also vanished from my life. Life with Sophia returned to a normal track. The company was growing strongly. We launched several new social products, all of which received a good response. I gradually stepped back from the front stage and put more energy into technology research and development and strategic planning. Sophia's design studio also did remarkably well, becoming a rising star in the industry. We each shined brightly in our own fields. We bought a house in an upscale neighborhood not far from the company. Not big, but very cozy. Every corner of the house was designed by Sophia herself. My favorite spot is the balcony. There was a large floor-to-ceiling window that looked out over half the city's nightscape. Every night, Sophia and I would sit together in the hanging chair on the balcony, drink red wine, chat, and watch the city's lights below turn on and then fade. That feeling was peaceful and reassuring. This was what I wanted, the feeling of home. On my 25th birthday, I proposed to Sophia. I didn't prepare any grand ceremony, nor did I invite many friends. Right there on our balcony, I took out the ring I'd been preparing for a long time and dropped to one knee. Sophia, I looked at her, my voice trembling. In my last life, I lost you. This time, I don't want to miss you again. Will you marry me? Sophia didn't speak. She just kept crying. She nodded vigorously and reached out her hand to me. I slipped the ring onto her ring finger. It fit perfectly. I stood up and held her tightly in my arms. Outside the window, 1,000 lights twinkled. In my arms was my whole world. Our wedding was very simple. We only invited both families and a few of our closest friends. There was no lavish motorcade, no extravagant display, only the most sincere blessings and the happiest smiles. At the wedding, I watched Sophia in her pure white wedding dress, walking toward me step by step. My eyes were a little moist. I felt as if I were seeing the little girl from years ago at the alley entrance, standing on her tiptoes waiting for me to come home. I saw that little girl in the classroom who, for my sake, dared to smash someone with a dictionary. I saw that little girl who, during the hardest times of my startup, silently stayed by my side and made coffee for me. She was still herself, not changed at all. What had changed was me. It was I who finally learned how to love, how to cherish. I held her hand and, in front of everyone, made a lifelong promise to her. I, Ethan Johnson, take Sophia to be my wife. From this day forward, in poverty or in wealth, in sickness or in health, I will love her, cherish her, and protect her until the end of my life. I did it. In this life, I made up for all the regrets of the last. I gave her and myself the most perfect ending. Married life was plain, yet full of happiness. We were still very busy, but we always reserved our weekends for each other. We would go grocery shopping together, arguing endlessly over whether to put the scallion in first or last. We would go to the movies together, moved to tears by a single line of dialogue. We would travel together too, hand in hand, walking through every corner of the world. Sophia is pregnant. In the second year after we got married. When she held the pregnancy test, her face full of joy as she told me the news, I felt my heart melting. I'm going to be a father. This realization filled me with an unprecedented sense of responsibility and happiness. From that day on, I became a model husband who fulfilled all filial duties. I took on all the household chores, learned to cook all kinds of nourishing soups, and told her a bedtime story every night. Sophia's belly grew day by day. I could clearly feel a little life slowly growing inside her body. That feeling was strange and wonderful and sacred. I began to look forward to what our child would be like. Would they be like me or like her, a boy or a girl? On the day of the birth, I waited outside the delivery room, unable to sit still. It was the first time since my rebirth that I felt so nervous and afraid. I was afraid she would be in pain, afraid something might go wrong. When the nurse came out holding a wrinkled little baby and told me mother and daughter are safe, my legs went weak and I almost collapsed to the floor. I rushed into the delivery room, took Sophia's icy hand, cold from exhaustion, and looking at her pale yet joyful face, tears finally spilled down my cheeks. Sophia, thank you for your hard work. She smiled weakly, her voice faint, not hard. Ethan, look, our daughter, how lovely. I looked at that tiny, soft little thing still smelling of milk, and my heart was filled with an enormous sense of happiness. This is my daughter. It was me and Sophia's, the fruit of our love. I named her Evelyn Johnson. I hoped that throughout her life she would be remembered, loved, safe, and joyful without worries. After having a daughter, my life became more complete. I began learning to change diapers, to prepare formula, and to sing lullabies. I handed more of the company's affairs over to my team and spent most of my time with my wife and daughter. I didn't want, like in my previous life, to miss the most important scenes of my life for those illusory things. Money can never be fully earned, but the companionship of family is priceless. I often watch my daughter crawling around the living room and Sophia sitting beside her, looking at her tenderly and feel an almost unreal happiness. How fortunate I am to be able to live a second life, to have the chance to make up for all the regrets and to embrace such a beautiful life. There is nothing left in my life to be dissatisfied with. On our daughter's 3rd birthday, we took her back to our hometown. The old district looked the same. Nothing had changed. Only the streets were narrower and the houses older. We went to see our high school. The school had been renovated, but the classroom building where we once spent our days was still there. I pointed at a window on the 3rd floor and said to the daughter in my arms, "Evelyn, look, this is where it all began for Mommy and Daddy." My daughter nodded, half understanding. We returned to the narrow alley where we had lived for more than 10 years. Most of the neighbors in the alley had already moved away. Our old house had also been rented out to someone else. Everything had changed. The people were no longer the same. We walked to the alley entrance. The old man who used to sell candied hawthorns was gone. She had been replaced by a young woman. But I still stepped forward and bought a skewer of candied hawthorn. I handed the candied hawthorn to my daughter. She took a bite and laughed happily, showing a few tiny milk teeth. "Daddy, sweet." I smiled and ruffled her hair. At that moment, I saw a familiar figure. It was Isabella. She was pushing a middle-aged man in a wheelchair, passing right in front of us. I recognized that man. He was her father. He seemed to have had a stroke. Half his body was immobile and his mouth was a bit crooked. Isabella looked older than she had a few years ago. There was no makeup on her face. She wore the plainest clothes, and there was no sparkle in her eyes. Only a numbness smoothed down by life. She saw me too. Our gazes met in the air for a few tenths of a second. A complex emotion flickered across her eyes. Surprise, jealousy, but more than anything, a resigned calm. She quickly looked away, pushed her father, and slowly walked off. None of us said a word. It was as if we were merely two strangers who had happened to meet on the street. Sophia took my hand and asked softly, "Are you all right?" I nodded and smiled. "I'm fine." I was truly fine. In my heart, there were no ripples left. I feel neither hatred nor pity toward her. Her life is the result of the choices she made herself. Whether good or bad, she must bear it herself. And I too have my own life now. A life full of love and warmth. We stood like that quietly for a while. The afterglow of the sunset stretched our shadows long, very long. I suddenly remembered that evening many years ago when flames shot up into the sky. I was reborn, and the first thing I saw was that great fire. Back then, I thought I had returned for revenge, to demand justice from those who had hurt me. But now I understand. That fire burned more than just Isabella's home. It was also all my obsessions and shackles from my previous life. It rescued me from a wrong, painful life. It gave me the chance to choose a right, bright path. I lowered my head, watching my daughter with her mouth full of syrup and Sophia wiping her mouth with a look of adoration, and felt a deep calm in my heart. My life had long since begun a new chapter, and the name of that chapter was happiness. I took Sophia's hand and said to her, "Let's go, we're going home." She smiled at me and nodded. Let's go home." The three of us, facing the setting sun, slowly walked deeper into the alley. Behind us was the night gradually falling, and that old world I had completely abandoned.